If you want your future, then keep listening.
Who are you willing to become at the risk of being seen? What are you willing to do at the risk of being wildly successful? What are you willing to let go at the risk of getting something greater?
If you are not motivated to put in the work that I'm talking about, you are in the wrong game. I'm not trying to make anybody burn out or be unhappy, but let there be no confusion to this room. Work ethic is part of the formula.
It doesn't matter who you are today. It certainly doesn't matter how you were born. The only thing that matters is who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay to get there.
So if you want to make real progress, then you really got to look at your life in a different way.
We fail when we ask the question, what lesson did I learn? And what will I do differently the next time? Bring it on.
Stay busy. Work your plan.
It's time for application. It's time for execution.
No matter what it takes, I will do the work. I will do the work over and over and over until I get it.
I know you're looking at everything and you're waiting for something to happen.
Everything in life is always changing. We don't have to work on change. Change is automatic, but progress is not. When will you see your purpose bigger than your excuse?
Don't count the number of times you've been knocked down. Get attached to the number of times you get up.
Put yourself in that cage. When you're in that cage, you are that character. But when I'm in that cage, bro, don't fucking touch me. Don't talk to me. It's go time.
Once you come face to face with who you are, you have a starting point. So that starting point is the truth. The no-bullshit truth that only you can tell yourself.
One day I made a decision that enough is enough. I'm tired of being average.
As long as you keep thinking you're deficient, you'll never make any progress. And I need you to stop looking at what you don't have, and I need you to start looking at what you do have.
Why do you really want to become what you want to become? You've got to know why, because your why is the anchor, it's the roots, it's the thing that's going to keep you anchored when hell comes against you, when the struggle comes against you.
Take responsibility to make your life happen.
I've found that most people fail in life, not because they aim too high and miss. Most people fail in life because they aim too low and hit.
Number one, you're going to have to discover or define in your head what success looks like for you. Because success is not completely wrapped up in what your mom thinks or what your dad thinks or what anybody else thinks. Success is wrapped up in this truth. What do you believe you are destined to become? What do you believe you are destined to do? So you need to get crystal clear on what that looks like for you. Because it may not look like it did for your sister, your brother, your mom, your auntie, your uncle. What does it look like for you? Define it. Some of us don't have a defined purpose. And this is why everything we do is random. This is why you can waste 2 hours on the internet doing nothing. This is why you waste time, because our purpose is not defined. Our future, we're not crystal clear on our future. Once we discover and we define what does success look like for me, what does the future look like for me, once we're crystal clear on that, we got to discover, we got to define, we got to get dedicated. We got to do those things that we hate like we love it. A wise man once said, conquer yourself. This is wrapped up in dedication. We have to get dedicated. Conquer yourself. Once you've unlocked those daily routines, those daily rituals that you stay committed to, the game's going to change. The only way you're going to get dedicated is if you eliminate all distractions. And you got to be so dedicated that every distraction gets blocked out. You got to learn how to turn your phone off, turn the technology off. When the speech is over, when the moment is done, when the song and the dance has ended, you got to learn how to eliminate all distractions. Who are you with? That is a distraction. Where do you go? That is a distraction. So there's who's, and there's what's, and there's where's that are distractions in our life, and we have to identify them and eliminate them. This is the only way we stay dedicated. Look, go find a mirror and look in that mirror and say, motivated, dedicated, motivated, dedicated. So we discover, we define, we dedicate ourselves. We do what we hate like we love it. We conquer ourselves. We identify and eliminate all distractions. And so now you're going to have some perseverance. We talk about perseverance, we're talking about persistent, we're talking about pressing and pushing towards something despite difficulty, despite delay, despite distractions, despite the doubters, despite the naysayers. This is somebody who perseveres, who has an unwavering tenacity to achieve what it is that they see in their head. You gotta learn to love where you are. Disciplined people are people that have an aim. They have a target. But they are also a people that understand the beauty, the brilliance, and the power of now. You gotta learn to love now. When we talk about being disciplined, it is somebody that has an objective. Yes, it is somebody that has an end game, a goal, an aim, a target. But a disciplined man or woman learns to love now. You may not be there, but you love who you are becoming. You enjoy, you enthusiastically engage in the everyday grind, and you love the lessons that you're learning. You may not be there yet. It's still in sight, it's still on the horizon, but you are ecstatic and elated about the lessons you are learning on a daily basis. You gotta love the fact that you may be a D, a F, or a C student, and you know you were designed to be an A+ student, but you gotta learn to love yourself right where you are. You may not have it yet, you may not see it all yet, you may not have the full support system, you may not even understand completely where God wants to take you. But if you would just love your now, this comes with gratitude, appreciation, a heart of thanksgiving for now. Hear truth. You will never be here again. The age that you are, the place where you are, the connections that you have, this very moment, we will never be here again. Seize the moment. If I were to give you one last piece of advice, remember this last point. Now that you're crystal clear on where you're going, who you believe you've been destined to become, what you believe you've been destined to do, you need to fix your eyes on somebody who's already done it. And so you've got to be surrounded by a multitude of counsel and mentors and coaches and people that will provoke you and agitate you to greatness. And so if all of your friends are beneath you, if you're the smartest person in the room, you've already lost. If majority of your network is a distraction, you're bankrupt. If everybody's language is you work too hard, you read too much, you care too much, you're doing too much, it doesn't take all that. Your relationship landscape is bankrupt. It's time to get out of debt. It's time to get out of debt. Eliminate distractions. Love your now.
There's a really powerful quote by a guy named Kevin Kelly, and he said, "Don't prematurely optimize." Don't just settle on a morning routine because I say it or because somebody else says it. Think of each part of those routines that you hear as being like Legos. And you're going to try a bunch of different Legos. And then you're going to see which ones create the morning routine that's perfect for you. And that is the key. It needs to be perfect for you. There isn't going to be any one size fits all. There are going to be different things that work for different people. So make sure that you get out there, you try a bunch of things, and then see what works for you. Now, when I think about a morning routine and what order I'm going to do things in, it has to do with what's going on in my life at that point, what's the most important thing to me in that moment, and then ordering things accordingly. So there have been times in my life where the first thing I do is meditate. There have been times in my life where the first thing I do is go to the gym. And so those are really the big two things that I oscillate between, but there are also times where I will immediately go to work. So any one of those three things may be the first thing that I'm doing in my morning routine, depending on what's going on in my life. So how do I decide between those? the thing that I want to make sure that no matter what else happens during the day, I get that done, then I do that first. And that really is what slot number 1 is for in any morning routine, is what is the most important thing that you know, no matter what else falls by the wayside during this day, if it gets crazy, things will crop up, that I know that I'm going to get that thing. I want to make sure that you're getting all the sleep that you actually need. So if you're waking up at 3 a.m., but you're going to bed at 8 p.m., then it's fine. That's 7 hours of sleep. And I would say the average person probably does fine between 7 and 8 hours. And if you're going to bed at 9 or 10 and getting up at 3, then odds are you just aren't getting enough sleep. Whenever you're feeling tired, one of two things is true. You are not getting enough sleep, or high quality enough sleep, or your diet is off. Those two things are going to be the things that contribute most to whether you feel fatigue or not. So whenever you're trying to get a new routine, what you're really trying to do is change your behavior. If you're trying to change your behavior, you must understand that behavior follows your beliefs. So now you need to get your beliefs in line. One of the beliefs you have to get in line is that it's worth getting out of bed, that you want to do this new thing, that you want to stop doing thing A and start doing thing B. So getting a mantra that you're repeating around this exciting new thing, that you want to do it, to make sure that you're building excitement, building desire around that thing. I believe this thing is important. I'm excited about this thing. I want to do this thing. Once you get that in the right place, you have a sufficient why, you have a sufficient level of excitement. Now all of a sudden, the behavior of getting up and doing that thing takes care of itself. So one of the most important things you can do in your life is to realize that it's critically important to be excited about the things you're trying to wrap these routines around. I see so many people fighting this ridiculously uphill battle to do a really hard thing that they don't care about. I have a really hard time doing things that I don't care about. So I'm always focusing first on getting myself to the point where I care. Now, that may mean that you have to change your life. If you hate your job, hate the things that you're doing with your time, step 1 is to start doing things that actually give you more energy than they take, that are exciting to you, that you're amped about, that seem worth pursuing, that you look out into your future 3 to 5 years. You know where you want to be, and you're taking meaningful steps to get there. Having a dream that is exciting and honorable, and you know that if I do this thing today and tomorrow and the day after, and I can make it a habit, and this becomes my routine, now I'm really making meaningful strides towards my goal. All of a sudden, when you don't feel like doing it, you just remind yourself what you're chasing. You remind yourself what that goal is. And most importantly, you remind yourself why you're pursuing that goal. It's a great Nietzsche quote. A person with a strong enough why can survive almost any how.
First of all, I really need to give some thought to, like, how can I provide advice that would be most helpful? And I'm not sure I've given enough thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment. A natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80-hour, 100-hour weeks every week. All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You know, like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like friends, particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, you know, and say, really, I really do want to know. and then they'll tell you. And the way I tend to view problems is from a physics standpoint. I think physics is a good analytical framework. And one of the key things in physics is to reason from first principles. This is contrary to the way most human reasoning takes place, which is by analogy. Reason from first principles just means that you figure out what are the fundamental truths or things that people are pretty sure are fundamental truths, and can you build up to a conclusion from that, from those principles, and then certainly if you come up with some idea and it appears to violate one of those fundamental truths, then you're probably wrong, or you should get a really big prize or something like that. This may seem like, I don't know, maybe it may seem sort of obvious when it's explained, but it's actually not what people do. Reasoning by analogies is helpful because it's a shortcut. Yeah. And it's mostly correct, but it tends to be most incorrect when you're dealing with new things, because it's hard to analogize to something really new.
When you were in college and developing these skills, you wanted to do some things that were of benefit to humanity. Why did you think that? Well, because not everyone does.
Yeah, no, I guess it was, I had sort of an existential crisis of like, what does it all mean, and what's the meaning of life, and it really goes back to high school, I guess. I don't want to give a laboriously long answer, but I had sort of a dark childhood. It wasn't good. Probably partially brought on by reading some of the philosophers. Like, don't ever read Schopenhauer and Nietzsche if you're 14. It's not good. I was just trying to figure out what does it all mean. And when I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I think is a great work of philosophy, that sort of highlighted the point that very often the issue is understanding what questions to ask. And if you can properly frame the question, then the answer is the easy part. So I thought things that expand the scope and scale of human consciousness and allow us to better ask questions and achieve greater enlightenment, those are good things. And so what can we do that's going to most likely lead to that outcome?
Truth of the matter is, how are you so physically fatigued that you have allowed your dream, your destiny to take a back seat to this excuse that you don't have what it takes, that you're not smart enough, that you're not tall enough, that you're not wide enough, that you're not deep enough, that you're not connected enough, that you don't know enough people? You keep comparing yourself to that person and this person. When will the excuses stop? When will you see your purpose bigger than your excuse?
Understand that it takes pure grit, tenacity, passion, and pure focus. This is what you train for. Hours and hours and hours and hours of pain. Hours and hours and hours and hours of sweat. Hours and hours and hours of working hard. Do you give up now?
I don't know your name, but I know you have a dream. I don't know where you're from or where you're listening to me. You may be listening to me in your closet, your bedroom, the gym, the car, the bus, the train, the plane. I don't know where you're going, but I know you are going somewhere. You've got a destination. People that make excuses are not connected to their destination. They don't have an end game. They don't have a goal. You have allowed yourself to become a weak link covered under the blanket of excuses. But I'm just wondering if there's anybody here that has a dream. And if you've made your excuses bigger than your dream, the time is now to apply pressure.
But do not depend on your flesh. Depend on the soul. The soul of a true champion. For the soul is eternal. And the soul never dies. Yes, you're gonna feel like you wanna give in. Yes, you're gonna feel like that body just ain't got it no more. Because you work so hard now.
This is not a I feel like it today. This is not a I'm motivated for a week. This is an every single day mentality. Everybody's got purpose, right? Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got something.
That tough circumstances, and they're waiting for the luck to arrive, and they're wondering, I've got dreams, and the dreams aren't happening fast enough. Like, what advice would you offer them?
Don't be too hard on yourself, and be patient. It's a kind of a mix that you have to go through, a bit of a dance. So on the one hand, you want to be serious about life. Life doesn't go on forever. Your youth will be over in 10, 12 years. You better believe it goes faster than you can imagine, right? You want to realize what your life's task is. You want to develop those skills that will make it so when you're in your 30s, things will come together as they fortunately did for me. It's a common story that 31, 32 is that year where things turn around for people, right? But on the other hand, you don't want to be so damn serious, so damn, linear in your thinking. You've got to head down this path to make this amount of money, etc. You're young. Have some fun, have some adventure, have some excitement. But at the same time, also have that sense of discipline, that sense of purpose. We normally associate intelligence with intellectuals, with our Noam Chomsky, with Albert Einstein. And he says, no, intelligence comes in all forms. Working with your hands is a form of intelligence. A carpenter has a high form of intelligence. People who are sports, who are athletic, who use their body, that's another form of intelligence. There's music, there's math, there's language. You have one of these frames of mind. By the way your brain is wired, you are inclined towards one of them. Figure that out. If you are somebody who's word-oriented and you end up going into a field that's about math or about numbers, you're in for a lot of pain in life. You have to look at the things that you love and the things that you hate. So what you don't like is very instructive to you, right? You're looking at things that are very powerful inside of you, that are emotional. They're not intellectual, but they're feelings, they're emotions. They're visceral things that you connect to. Negative emotions are trying to teach you something. They're trying to teach you the opposite. Something else is going on. Frustration is a sign that you haven't given up. You know you can do something, but you haven't figured it out. So when you have those kind of feelings, look at them, and there's something positive in that. It's never too late. It's better to start earlier on in life. I mean, I wrote a book, Mastery, that deals with that subject. The earlier you figure it out, the better off you are. But it can happen later in life. Now, I figured out at an early age that I wanted to write. I didn't know what I wanted to write, but I loved words and I loved writing. And if I didn't have that connection when I was 8 years old, all the way into high school and college, I would have been a lost soul. And I empathize with a lot of people who don't have that feeling when they're 8 or 18 or in their 20s. But I try to tell people everybody has it. You're just not listening to yourself. You're on social media too much. You're listening to what other people are telling you. You're listening to what your parents told you should be doing in life. You're listening to what your friends think is cool. You're listening to what the culture is all about, the entertainment industry, etc. You got to cut all that bit out. You got to listen to yourself. You got to be a bit bold. You have to embrace what makes you different. I say what makes you weird because I know personally I'm a very weird person. I like it. I don't mind being weird. I use it to my advantage. I put it in my books.
So success leaves clues. I'm going to give you some
Control of our minute, our hour, our day, our week, our month, and our year. Stop running around being on the receiving end of whatever people want to dump on you. You showed up. You accepted that invite.
You invited these people to your house. You're in a relationship with that man. You're in a relationship with that woman. That's you. So how do you feel at the end of your night? How easy and how convenient is it for us to blame everything and everybody for the things that we have going on in our lives? There is a such thing as you being a positive and a great person with the best of intentions towards everybody, and shit is rough and you just can't get a break. But most of you are waking up every day looking for pain, dysfunction, drama, unemployment, being broke, struggling, dropping every excuse in the book about your childhood and the problems and dysfunction that you grew up in that's stopping you from becoming successful. You don't like your friends, so why are you still with them? You don't trust your managers, agents, and lawyers, so why are they still there? Do you really expect your life and career to be any different from messing with the same things, people, and situations? That's all I'm saying. Are the things that you're doing and the people that you're hanging out with and the places and the circles that you're traveling in, does that reflect a person that actually loves themselves? If you love yourself, why would you with those type of people? You know what they're saying about you behind your back. You know they're jealous and envious of who you are and the things that you got going on in your life and your career. You know that they don't like you. And they've made it clear. They've sent you every sign imaginable that they could possibly send you. And because you're so desperate to have people around you and in your life, you continue to go back. You continue to show up to everything they invite you to, knowing what they're saying about you. I'm not preaching separatism. I don't want a bunch of people to just be alone at home doing nothing with no friends, no family, and nothing to do. I'm saying that at this point, you are old enough and mature enough to understand the difference in good people and bad people. And when you're hanging out with negative, dark, and dysfunctional people, you cannot expect yourself to go to sleep at night and rest. You cannot expect yourself to feel good about your day when you're including negative and dysfunctional people in your day. Stop being a lazy person that's full of excuses, sitting around on the pity potty, coming up with every excuse in the world as to why you ain't winning. You are the reason you're not winning. You keep messing with negative, evil, and dysfunctional people and expecting positive results. It's time you get off the pity potty. Stop complaining about being out of shape when you never go to the gym. Stop looking at your stomach when you get out of the shower and your body and complaining about the way you look when you're eating everything in sight and never going to the gym. You are the reason you look the way you look. You are the reason you're unemployed. You are the reason why your surroundings are so dysfunctional and negative. You could still be in the hood, broke and living a peaceful life. It's a choice.
Well, to begin with, and this happened when I was in graduate school, I had a lot of bad habits. I smoked like a pack of cigarettes a day, and I drank a lot. I came from this little town in northern Alberta, and like many little towns, especially in northern Canada, alcohol overuse is de rigueur, and so I noticed when I was in my early 20s that the only time I really regretted what I had done was when I was drinking. Now, it was also interfering with me writing because I couldn't concentrate well enough if I was hungover, but I also couldn't tolerate the emotional strain of what I was writing about when I was hungover. I couldn't handle being on the edge because I destabilized my nervous system. In any case, I stopped drinking, and the reason for that was, I decided I didn't want to be ashamed of what I was doing anymore. I thought, maybe I could not do things that were shameful and then see what my life was like. So that was sort of on the negative end, the constraint end. I think people get, on the more positive end, people get deeply involved in what they're doing if they're in the right place in the right time. So that I would say you can tell This is the idea of heaven on earth to some degree. When time stops, when you're not aware of the duration of time, when you're so engaged with what you're doing, then you've got the forces of chaos and order balanced properly. You're not stultified and bored. That's an excess of order. Everything's too predictable. You're not overwhelmed. You're dealing with, you're playing tennis at the peak of your game. That's partly what people experience when they're great athletes when they play.
The zone, yeah.
And they're always stretching themselves to their limit. You can tell that if you watch a gymnast, for example, who has a brilliant performance. They've stretched themselves beyond their domain of competence during the performance. And that's what makes everybody leap to their feet. That's the incarnation given embodiment right there in front of you for some moments. And everyone cheers that on.
If you're adopting a time frame that makes what you're doing appear trivial, the problem isn't necessarily what you're doing, although it might be, and you have to ask yourself that question because perhaps you are engaging in something that's more trivial than you should be. The problem is that your mind, which is capable of leaping across evaluative frameworks, has picked a time frame inappropriate for the task. So quit doing that. Instead, you could say, well, why don't you practice adopting the time frame that imbues your properly oriented action with the deepest possible apprehended meaning? And why would you not think that the fact that that meaning manifests itself with the proper choice of time frame, why wouldn't you accept the fact that's indication of a valid choice? It certainly feels like it. You know what it's like. You get engaged in something, a deep conversation, a piece of music, a piece of art, something you love doing, someone you love being with. You get engaged in that. You lose your sense of temporality. And you don't pop out of it and think, oh my God, I wish I would have used a time frame that made everything irrelevant because of my, cognitive brilliance. You think, hey, we could do that some more. Like, how about all the time? And that's a good goal. It's like, yeah, how about that all the time? And then you've got time right when you're engaged like that. And I would say that's a profound neurophysiological signal that you're in the right place at the right time, right? Because it's accompanied by a sense of deep well-being, and that's literally an antidote to suffering.
The advantage to being deprived is that it's obvious what to do. Like if you're starving, then you eat. There's no question. But if you have enough to eat, and you have enough shelter, and you have enough information, maybe not as much as you could have, but enough, it starts to become difficult to decide what to do. And then you have another problem, which is that you can't decide what to do. Yeah. And then you have to start to investigate value. So you should be responsible to yourself and your future self, the community of selves that you are across time, and then you should be responsible for and productive for as many people as you can manage. And so that might be first your intimate partner, your wife, second your parents, your siblings, your children, maybe your children primarily, although there's a trade-off there with your wife. Then your local community, then your broader community. You want to take on all that responsibility if you can, in a sense that's both productive and generous. That gives you something to do. Justify your miserable life to yourself and everyone else, and you need to do that. It orients you solidly in the world if you do that, and it gives you a dragon to fight, a real one, and that's where the gold is. So
things that you say to yourself will define the person that you become, and too often we let our minds get away with too much. We let our minds get away with you're not enough, you suck, with you can't do that, with you're not enough for that. But here's the truth. There's another way. You don't need to listen to that voice in your head, and you have the opportunity to stand up for yourself. You have the opportunity to be the person that says, I'm not going to speak to myself that way. I'm going to choose another story. Because the words that you put after I am will determine the kind of person that you become, and unconsciously all of us tell ourselves that we are something that we're not. We tell ourselves all of these things that are made and designed to keep us safe and hold us back from doing the things that we want to do, because maybe they will result in failure. Maybe they'll result in us hurting ourselves. Maybe they'll result in being rejected. But here is the truth. We can't keep on running from life.
We can't keep running from the things that we're afraid of. We can't keep running from the rejections. And I get that our brain is trying to keep us safe, but we've got to push past that and tell ourselves something different. We've got to push past that and say, I understand that you don't think I'm enough to handle this, but I'm going to try anyways. You've got to be able to push past that idea of, I don't really know if I'm prepared for this, and go for it. You've got to be the person that decided to say, I am good enough for this, as opposed to I feel like I'll fail. You have to be the person that decided to go for it, regardless of where you are, regardless of your level of confidence, regardless of how capable you feel to be able to get this done. You've got to tell yourself something different, because the words that you put after I am will determine who you become. So check what you are saying to yourself. Check the words that you're saying to yourself. Check the labels that you're putting on yourself. Check the person that you are putting on yourself, because so many people say, I am not made for that. I can't really do that. I'm not built that way. And we put all of these unconscious labels on ourselves that keep us from our full potential. There is a different way. It takes telling yourself that, hey, yeah, I am enough, that I can do that thing, that I am built for this, that I will say let's go even if I feel uncomfortable.